This year at Davos, economists, business leaders and politicians are hoping that they can finally put the financial and economic crisis of the past 6 years to bed. This year they're looking forward, not back, and they think the world is looking better. The world is growing again, growth is speeding up, although they're not complacent, and they think there are still quite big fragilities in the world economy that they still need to be extremely careful about. We contacted some of the really leading economists coming to the World Economic Forum in advance of the event to see what they thought about the world economy over the next year. And it was really a remarkably optimistic picture compared with the past 5 years, particularly regarding the US. People think the US has now sorted out its banking crisis, and with its fiscal consolidation largely done last year, even in some extraordinary messy circumstances, they think the US is set for about 3% growth this year and can really get back to normal. And when you put the US, the UK, Germany, Japan and much of the emerging world together, that's over half the global economy doing pretty well. The big question still about the Eurozone, even if it's not going to collapse, people don't think, that its growth is still really quite weak. The recovering world economy doesn't mean that everyone thinks everything is fine. In fact, there are two big fragilities that economists, politicians are talking about. One is inequality, whether the growth that we're going to get is going to be well shared, not just across the world, where we know actually that poor countries are growing faster than rich countries, so global inequality is in fact coming down, but within countries where inequality seems to be rising. And if growth isn't shared for the whole of the population, then social structures are going to find it very hard to keep going. And a second big concern here at Davos is whether the growth ultimately is very sustainable. Is this just a catch-up, or is growth in the long term likely to be a lot lower? We've seen in the last year that productivity growth around the world, not just in countries like the UK or Germany where we know it's been very weak, but in the US and in emerging markets, has been exceptionally weak. If this is a trend, not just a short-term blip, then things in the longer term will look quite bleak indeed. Giles, Financial Times in Davos.